2026. And this is our part two of looking at and talking about chronic stress. And those that are here live, we just did a little landing uh, exercise or finishing a landing exercise. And before we move on, just to feel that resources are here. The earth is here. The trees are here. The sun, the precipitation is here. We are held in the great mystery in this location of the Milky Way in our little solar system. And there's so many resources that are available, and we don't always remember this. So we're just taking this time before we turn toward this topic to soak in whatever comes into our awareness as resource. Use your senses, sensations, smells. It can be memories. They don't have to be in this moment. You can bring them alive, as you know. My mind just went to the smell of lilac blooms. Whatever, a taste, like something that just gives you the signal of comfort and ease, joy, maybe dark chocolate, whatever your ever gives your system that sense of like, oh, yeah, I can be here. Um, and then let's bring in emotion, the resource of emotion. So a time that we felt connected. We've talked about this a fair amount in our previous conversations, times that we felt connected, a sense of belonging, ease. And just let these come in without any labor of like having to go and look for memories, just like open to that past experience as a resource that you can bring online, that you can live stream right now. Yeah, and maybe notice how your body responds, what sensations change, what happens as we tune in to resource. Yeah. It's very sweet. It's subtle, and I feel like I can sense like, oh yeah, something shifting in our field as we all do this together. We're creating another kind of resource, which is a shared experience with a shared intention, so that we feel this like, oh, I'm not just here doing this on my own. Is that even if you're listening to the recording, there's this way that there are others that are tuning in to resource, and that we get to rest in the field of that, the not aloneness of that, which is also a resource. Okay, everybody feel loaded up on the resources side to look at chronic stress. I'll remind you to continue to feel what you're resting back into and the possibility of resting and down into with your feet, the back of your legs, your seat. So when you feel ready, you can slowly open your eyes, and I'm gonna share an image just to start with. We talked last time about resources. Did everyone have a chance, if you weren't here last time, to look or listen to that recording? No, okay. So we looked at a balance scale where about our nervous system tone and then what happens in the body. And that balance scale is challenges and resources. And that's something that to me feels really lovely to tend, is like how much challenge is here right now and how much resource. And one thing I hope you can feel right now is the power of our attention to tip the scales. It's like the old grocer's finger on the scale. If we just put our awareness to resource, maybe you can feel that right now, like, oh, maybe I feel a little more ease than I did getting ready to come on the call because we've dropped our awareness. We're like weighting the scale on the side of resource. So this is about stress, right? Resources, challenges. The more challenges we have and the fewer resources, I feel more stressed when that happens. Anybody else? Like, oh, a farming friend of mine used to say, he probably still says it, I haven't seen him in a few years, the challenges are excellent. And he always said it and laughed. And I was like, wow, Curtis, I wish I had that attitude. So humor can be a resource. Connection is a resource. And 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 then we'll move on, but this is a little bit of a review from last time. Being able to say no or exit a situation is a huge resource that we don't have as children. So I want to, kind of highlight that we're working with the patterns, the survival patterns that got put in place in a time where we didn't have what we're talking about right now. The capacity, the development in our nervous system to choose from our prefrontal cortex where to direct our attention. And so the deep brain, the way it works, because its job is to keep us alive, and that's online very, very early, is focus on what's not okay so that we can survive. So you might even feel a little tension come in as we name that. I was like, ah. Well, the good news is that at the age we all are, we have developed prefrontal cortex. And the more we engage in mindfulness activities, like just paying attention and being present in the moment and noticing when our mind goes away and bringing it back, that strengthens this part of our brain. It's not like how long can I just sit here and not get distracted? What they've seen in the research is actually what strengthens this is that the mind goes away and then we go, oh, I noticed that my mind went away. Now I'm going to come back to resource, whatever that is. Maybe that's like contact with myself, or maybe that's stepping outside into the sun, putting my feet on the earth, or okay, so a little review from last time about stress. And now we're going to look at chronic and what that is. And I'm going to share, let me take this down for a second. Do any of you know Seth Godin? He is an innovator. I really love him. He's not in the healing world. He's really kind of like a business presence, and I don't remember who turned me on to him, but he is such a cool thinker. He has such a wonderful way of looking at things. And so I years ago signed up for his blog and yeah, his blog. And so I want to share, let's see, I want to share this just as a way to understand. Can you see that image? Chronic. So the worst kind of problem is precisely the kind of problem we're not spending time worrying about. This is so true. This is part of what I love about it. It's so true for our brain. It's way below consciousness. This is not the cataclysmic disaster, the urgent emergency, or the 5 alarm fire. No, the worst kinds of problems are chronic. They grow slowly over time and are more and more difficult to solve if we wait. They're also more and more difficult to identify because they become like the water that we are swimming in, and the stress, the chronicness of the stress becomes just normal. We don't really notice. Or if we do notice, it's not like the 5 alarm, like I've got to do something about this. Um, Chronic problems are most often solved by building new systems, right? So we talk about a lot in this work is the old way and the new way, and what actually are resources and supports for what we want for ourselves now, because those are very different than what we experienced before. In the Gupta program, this is called the left-hand path, is the old way, the deep ruts, the loops, and then the right-hand path is what we want for ourselves. And just like Seth is saying, the what we want for ourselves now that's different than what we have known requires a new system, requires, yeah, different resources. And so new ways to engage with the issue over time, methods that create their own habits in their own forward motion. And what I love about this is that there's a like a carrying energy here, that it's not about efforting, it's not about labor. And what we just were talking about with resources, one thing that is often significantly different, and then sometimes feels like, I don't know how to do this, is that part of the new system is a new relational system, a new way of being in relationship with ourselves, and maybe a new outer relational web that actually supports this person. I know when I was recovering from my chronic illnesses, at a certain point in my retraining, I was like, oh, wow, I have pigeonholed myself into being this person that really doesn't work for me. Like not receiving, giving, giving, giving. That worked for me as a kid a lot, don't have needs, don't be a problem. So just to shine the light, like, oh, there are new systems that are needed and will develop as we engage over time. And I love that he says in here the word, oh, doesn't he, practices, methods that create, yeah, their own habits, right? So that our habits will change. So that's also really helpful just to bring to consciousness as we're talking about creating new habits, which is not does not feel the same as doing the same thing, just step one is to realize you have a chronic problem. That's uh, maybe those of us that are sitting here have recognized that because our health or our lack of sense of well-being has been like, you have to do something now. My teacher, Thomas Hubel, says, and I think Ashok says this too, like it starts with a soft knock on the door. Or Ashok says a feather. And then it's a brick. This is what Ashok says. And then it's a bus. And Thomas says, it's a knock on the door. Next, it's like a banging on the door. You know? And we don't answer the door. Oh, they'll go away. And then, you know, eventually we try and go out the back door. This is Thomas. And then they're at the back door. And there's no, like, we can't. Our body or something in us is like, this has to change. We cannot. There is a chronic problem here. It may not be as thrilling as switching to emergency mode, but it's more effective. And I think what I want to name here is another thing that I really love about this work is I know when I was trying to recover in the beginning, I was in emergency mode and I was going to all these different practitioners, taking all these supplements and all really exhausting myself. And that's not the way. That is not a new way, right? That's going about healing in the old way. Um, so to notice that, like, am I in emergency mode? Does that belong to the new way or is that the old way? And then we can bring compassion to that experience of being in emergency mode, like, oh, yeah, I feel you. And let the presence of who we are now and the support of who we are now help us kind of these survival patterns in our brain are very focused. They don't, so they're deep in the amygdala, deeper brain, and there's some checking with the prefrontal cortex, but that happens slower than just the reflexive emergency mode. So when we have this greater perspective, and we're not chasing this and chasing that and thinking we have 20 different problems, which is how I felt. It was like, oh, my digestion, oh, my this, and my blood, and then my methylation, and my sleep, and my hormones, right? It's like, no, there's one, we just open the lens up and see, oh, yeah, this is. This is an old, there is a deeper one problem, one situation to deal with here, if that resonates. And if you want to say anything at any time, you can raise your hand and I'll pause the recording. But I kind of wanted to set the scene with just what is chronic, because we talk about stress, but like, what's the chronic part? I would love to show you. This is another, would you like me to pause the recording for a second?
Sure.
Um, Give me just a second. Um, Okay, so we're back, and now we're going to talk about, now that we've kind of looked at chronic, and part of the challenge with chronic is how insidious it is. I want to show a slide about allostatic load. Who knows what allostatic load is? It's like a very, yeah, okay, good. A little bit, okay. Um, I had to really dig deep in my brain to be like, wait, what is allostatic load? Um, So this image, I'll bring it up in just a second. This image is from well, a workshop that a woman in the North Bay, San Francisco Bay, I believe she's in Oakland, um, led. She is a practitioner of many things, and she gave this talk about triggers as opportunities, which was like super interesting. I was like, oh, I need to hear what she has to say. And this is an image that she used, and it has her name in the upper right. I'm going to zoom in on it when I share it. Okay, so just don't look at it too closely yet, because I want us to look at it in segments, because there's a lot here. Can you see the image? No? Can you see that I'm sharing an image? Can somebody just nod? Okay, great. So, oh, let's zoom out and just see what she says. So these are cumulative stress, right? This is stress over time. That's this axis. And then this is symptoms or disease that show up. So we're looking at the relationship. We looked about this at this a little bit in the first part one, but cumulative stress and symptoms or disease. So what happens? Let's just call this conception, because some of us had prenatal trauma. We'll call this conception, maybe, that there's this baseline that's health. And let's also, I feel like I have to name, there is ancestral and collective stress that we are born into. Thomas Hubel says our soul like moves through that field and is kind of initiated into um, these stressors or traumas that reside in our collective fields when we come in, when we're conceived. So so let's say, because this is not like perfect health for any of us because of that collect what we live in collectively, but that there is a baseline of resting nervous system tone that earlier in this physical experience we would rest at. And something would happen. Maybe we got hungry and then maybe we were fed. And then it's like, oh, we would come back down to our resting, a true like resting nervous system state, or closer to that than maybe happens in our system now. And then over time, if the stressors, as the stressors accumulate and have more of an impact in our system, then this is what happens is we don't recover all the way back down to true, ah, like all the way through our deep brain. And over time, then what happens is this is chronic stress. This can look like I got scared and no one noticed, and actually it wouldn't come down then. I got scared and maybe I recovered a little bit. Like I went as a kid, like I went and like snuggled with my stuffed animal or whatever, but we don't come all the way back down. That's what these are talking about. Or mm, there's a bully in the neighborhood and I get beat up and my parents blamed me for being in whatever, hanging out with kids that weren't good for me or something. So what we're looking at is that recovery from stress over time. This includes, like I was just naming, undigested emotion, so emotion that did not get held in relationship. And so it didn't actually really get to be felt because it might have overwhelmed us to feel it. And our body knows how to manage it, right? How to just put it away for a time when somebody's going to be there and I can cry or just about how mad I am. So here we are. How's your seat? How's your resource right now? Can you feel resting into your chair and that the earth has us? We're just going to load up our resources side. These are not resourcing memories. Like this is not resourcing. So this is when we go, oh, wait a minute, let's bring in a little, let's notice my out breath. Maybe even lengthen the out breath a little bit as a gift, as a connection. Noticing anywhere that's vibrating or holding tension right now, not trying to make it go away because that's repression, suppression. Just like, oh, right, yeah, this brings up some stress. Yeah, I feel you. If there's somewhere that you're feeling some activation in your system, this actually brings up another beautiful point, which is that stress also has a lot to do with the way we make sense of things and then the stories we tell ourselves. So, if part of that story is I have to pay attention to what Beth's saying, if I don't get it, I'm not actually going to be able to heal. That is a challenge, right? Whereas if the story we tell ourselves is, wow, I'm learning this really cool information. I didn't know this. What a resource. There's going to be a recording. I can go back and watch it later. I might not get this all. That's really okay. That may not be the messaging we got when our nervous systems were developing. So just to shine a light on that in real time, that, oh, like there's a way that we engage with whatever is happening that also tips the balance scale and can bring stress in. But as soon as we notice, bringing anything to conscious awareness brings the resource side of our scale. Like, oh, yep, that's what's happening right now. This is old, like, I have to get it all right now. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get well. And then we just go, oh, yeah, I feel you. That was so stressful, right? Being caught in that. We actually turn toward the part of us that didn't get the connection back then and didn't get to feel this, and we bring connection to the vibration or the contraction or the fuzziness. Just like, okay, yeah, I feel you. Don't have to fix it. Fixing it, like if this is like something stressful happen, if somebody comes and is like trying to help you fix it, how far down do you think you come back to a resting state if someone's like, okay, the way our nervous system is designed to recover is to feel connection and feel like, okay, it's okay to be here. It's okay to feel this. Let it move. Maybe there's crying, maybe there's shaking, maybe there's some kind of experience of the anger, not violence, but feeling the energy, the life energy moving through. And then, our nervous system goes, okay, that was intense. And now I'm back. But we learn these other ways of managing. That's all just conditioning. That's not actually the way. It's not the way that we're choosing. Okay, so now Cynthia wrote here, let's see, let's look at some of what she wrote because this is such a great slide. Stress, these are stress stimuli, chronically repeated stress stimuli. If the load is stacked, that means here where there's just like, oh, we're not going back down to baseline anymore. A single trigger could trigger a lot of subconscious emotion. So like we're not at a good resting place and then something happens. Does anybody experience this where, wow, I mean, was that really a big deal what just happened? Like I didn't seem like that big of a deal and I lost it. And maybe I got fatigue, or maybe I got hives, or maybe my body, this used to happen to me when I had chronic fatigue, my body would just ache for days. It's like, oh, so that, anybody experience that? Or like, oh, then that shows us that, I think this is, I love a lot about this slide, that that's the big deal with the chronic stress, right? We don't notice it, like Seth was saying. But then the way we do notice it is like, whoa, I'm not okay. And I didn't think that was such a big deal, whatever it was, getting the notice from the bank or the IRS or okay, like let's just deal with it. But no, like something deep in me that has been carrying all this stress, just it's too much. Um, yeah. Questions about this? Anybody want me to pause the recording and say anything about this? Or I'll take it down. I'm looking for hands and I don't see any. Okay, I'm going to take it down and just let's just feel how we feel because that's like, it's almost to me, it's like pulling the curtain away from the Wizard of Oz, and being like, oh, that's how this works. Got it. Like, why? Why me? Why now? Like, why? I do my yoga, I meditate. So the thing that takes us back down, like really down to recovery, and Cynthia teaches an Eastern, I cannot remember the name. It's really beautiful. It's an awareness tool about bringing in resource. Um, but remember challenges and resources. We need to bring lots of resource. More than the part of us that's really normalized the level of stress thinks that we need um, to support the digestion of all of this undigested strain that's in our system. Some of us go, like, this can happen on a vacation. You might have noticed this. Like, you go on a vacation, and you're like, oh, I haven't felt this relaxed in years. Um, and then you come back and you're right back it can happen on a retreat. It can happen. One thing I found really helpful, which is why I really love working in a small group setting, is being a part of a group that builds trust over time, that's centered around around healing, that builds trust over time. Some of you have had this experience and can touch some of this material, and then it can be digested with that resource of the relational trust and the agreements and the container. Therapeutic relationships can be this. It's like, okay, here's a place. But my sense, because we are such relational beings, and that's how we developed as humans and part of how we've survived, that when we had early experiences where relationship didn't equal resource, that it can actually feel safer to be, for some people, not for everyone, to be in a group where there's more than just one person there. And it's like, okay, we're doing this thing. There are plenty of other people here. We're gonna, everything's out in the open. And we have some agreements. This is not just like a dinner party or something, that there's a container. So I want to name that too, because these ongoing stresses, um, I had been meditating for 20 years when I got sick. I mean, not that that maybe there are people, I was very dissociated as a young person. And so I came into my body a lot more during those 20 years. But just to say that we have daily practices and those are important. And that just, I think I want to bring that to awareness that if we think about the challenges and resources to as much as we can, give ourselves, what did Seth call them? New systems to support this new way of being, right? It's not just understanding, oh, this is what I need, and yeah. Okay, let's pause for a minute and just have some conversation. I'm gonna give me a second to pause the recording because this is a lot. Yeah, so we're back. We just had a little conversation here, and one thing I want to make sure we have on the recording is that not returning to baseline um, can include like where we have to brace or shrink wrap experience and put it away or be in freeze or disconnected from ourselves, that in a way that helps us manage in an environment that does not have the resources, the connection, and the support to hold us through actually feeling and doing a natural feeling, like having the experience that brings something up and then feeling it, knowing that someone's there, that we're not alone in it, and then recovering. That's a vulnerable process. It requires connection and support, which is why in our culture, so many of us are carrying around. Robert Bly called it what did he call it? The black bag, the 2-ton black bag or something, is all the stuff that we can't, that doesn't get socially accepted or engaged with to digest. It has to go in this black bag. And then he's like, now you know, you're going to work and you wonder why it's so hard to get up the stairs. It's like we're dragging all of this. And so in a little bit, we can use that analogy or that metaphor of we're taking things out of the bag. So here's the good and bad news that just got brought up. Thank you. Is that okay, when we have more resource, and then some of this undigested experience that's on our challenges side starts to get to unload. We actually need, and this is where the balance scale metaphor kind of starts to fall apart, is that what it actually looks like on the challenges side when something comes out of freeze is, wow, now we're going to feel it. Like the anesthesia comes off. So in a way, it's like freeze is it's not really a resource unless we think of resource as something that just helps us get through. So it's like what do you call that? It's like a patch. It's like well, there's a name for that where it's just like it just gets you through, but it's not really the answer. So the good news is we might have blown the circuit breaker box in our nervous system if we didn't have this when we were kids. So we need the freeze. We need to be able to turn the volume down or just be like, I'm fine. I'm okay, even though, we're not okay. So as that anesthesia, let's say it's like this little add-on on that side of the scale. It's not really a resource, but it kind of tips the scale that way because we don't have to feel as much. But then when we start getting real resource, what happens is that the freeze that we needed, or the anesthesia that we needed, can start to turn down a little bit, and then we're going to feel more. Then we're going to feel, sometimes people say, I actually feel worse now that I'm doing this healing work. But the worse usually is not more, sometimes it's more symptoms because our deep brain responds to the emotion as a threat. But often it's, and I know for me it was a case, I'm feeling a lot of like aching in my chest or vibrate, like fear in my body, or so that now this is part of returning to the baseline. It's a little confusing. I'm really glad you asked this. Are you with me so far? Does this make sense? So it feels like, whoa, I'm feeling so much more. I don't like it. It's so intense. This is where we need what Seth was saying about new ways. We need a new, that wasn't his word, was it? We need a new support system. We need a new network. That's what's his word, I think. We need a new network to support. So, yes, one thing that connection, attuned connection, hard to come by. I was having this conversation with another physical therapist here. And I wasn't looking for this, but I was talking to her about this kind of healing work and attuned connection. And she just looked at me, she goes, who has that? I'm just like, no. This is our cultural problem, right? Okay, so this is not a personal problem. This is the modern world that we live in that does not value connection or vulnerability. And that's what we live in. So we just have to go, okay, that's just not, I'm not going to just get that on the social media feed or on this is a new network. So to bring ourselves to place of attuned connection, whether that's a one-on-one therapeutic, or if you have a friend and there's reciprocity where you can hold space for each other, that that's also a resource and a support. Groups are great for this. Um, Over time, that there's safety in moving your body to also like move the energy in your body because there's a lot that wants to move when this emotion is coming up. So, little martial arts, qigong, tai chi are amazing for moving energy and the subtle energy of emotion. I mean, there are lots of options. I'm just going to say things from my limited experience. Yoga is really good at this, even like chair yoga or something, because the positions, like these ancient practices, have a lot of wisdom in them about moving, however it's languaged, moving subtle energy, moving chi, moving prana, like just like the experience gets stuck, that energy gets stuck. And so, yes, we can feel like I need some support in this. And I would say this is actually the beauty of it and the conundrum of it. In the old network, we didn't have support. That's how we got here. And so it's going to feel not available. All the calibration in our deep brain is going to say, no one's there. I mean, no one can actually support you anyway, or it's a threat. If you open to someone, things could go badly. So then we are in relationship with that. We don't override it, but we feel, okay, what does feel familiar or safe that could come in as a support here? So if it's a bodywork modality that you've benefited from before, there's also, I mean, the Gupta program is all like there's meditations there, there's um, vertical integration tools like the accelerator and the mind map. And sometimes it's hard to do those because we need support, right? So then we might even just have a buddy. A buddy, like if we're doing that program, there is a forum where you can go and find a buddy. Or if you have another friend that's engaged in healing work and you say, hey, can we have a text check-in or a chat every Wednesday or to support each other? So I think support is the word, and it will look different for everybody. I mean, there's so many like staying hydrated, eating. There's so many ways we can bring support in. And following your knowing, because I heard a lot of knowing in your question too about moving the energy and like, oh, what are some ways that I can build my capacity? Because that's true. Exercise, walking, or any like even more gentle exercise are ways that we build our cardiovascular capacity, and that helps with our circulation, right? And yeah, I could go on and on about that, like lymph flow and the kinds of, so yeah, I think this is a really important piece to talk about is that the recovery from a stressful situation requires support. Sometimes that's a peaceful environment, sometimes that's a connection with nature, and it may mean supports that are new networks or new that we don't actually know about. And then we talk to people and we ask questions or we say, how is that for you? Or what are the things that you, especially because I know that you have connections with other people and lines of communication with other people that are in the Gupta program. And to check in and say, hey, this is what I'm noticing. What do you all do with that? Um, that support, right? Is that I don't, it's part of the new way is that I don't have to do this on my own now. So we're almost at time, and this is a perfect, if it's okay, I want to show you the last slide that I had. This is a miracle for me to actually get to all the slides that I wanted to share with you all. And this is about, we didn't talk about all of these things. Some of this is I referenced last time that I got to do this really wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. I don't think you'll ever see this, but psychoneuroimmunologist, I get to do a workshop with her. I think it was during the pandemic, about stress and inflammation, and that um, stress is the biggest driver of inflammation, um, which was amazing for me to hear. It wasn't, I'd heard many other things from people about what was driving all the inflammation in my system. So here is a list. Some of these are from Lisa, and some of them are pulled from other places. Is how do we mitigate stress? Like, how do we help with that recovery on Cynthia Lee's slide? Is like, how do we help our system come back to a baseline? Can you see this last slide? Pink. Okay. So we've already talked about attuned connection, digesting motion. These are called Alan Gordon, who is a pain reprocessing guy who's amazing and hilarious. He calls these signals of safety. So giving our system signals of safety, anything that gives, we did that at the beginning, resourcing, anything that gives us an experience and emotion are the language of our deep brain. Okay, those don't come from our thinking brain. So anything that gives us the experience of, oh, it's safe to be here. I can be here. So attuned connection, digesting emotions, taking achievable actions. This is from Lisa Goler. Wow, there's research that shows, and you probably know this, like if you just like get up and do something, even if it's a little thing, it gives our it gives our deep brain a signal of safety, like we have agency. Now, even more so if that is taking an achievable action on something that's a stressor. Like I have to finish my bookkeeping. Now I feel stressed when I say that because this is actually true for me right now. And then, but if I say I just have to finish, my achievable action is I'm going to finish this afternoon the next month of accounting that I'm behind on. Then I can feel a little energy come in like, oh, I can do that. I could actually do that. Um, and I'm going to give a plug for something here. I don't usually do this, but it's a tool that I use. There's this online service called FocusMate. And you just log on, and if you need to do something, you can choose how long you need to work on it. And they pair you, it's like incredible, with someone else that is waiting for a focus mate to come on and work with them for 50 minutes or 75 minutes or whatever. So you don't feel like you're doing it alone. Um, but achievable actions are a huge signal of safety for our nervous system and a great way to manage stress. It's when we're passive, which is what happens when we're a kid. Sorry, we're going a few minutes over you all. And if anybody needs to leave, just wave. Um, this is the hard thing about being a kid. We mostly feel powerless in the face of the challenges. So if we notice that we're aware of these challenges and we're not doing anything, we're not taking an achievable action, just to make that conscious, to be like, I am scared. I'm afraid I'm not going to get my accounting done before this deadline. And I'm scared, and I feel that right here. And now I'm not trying to push it down. I'm actually bringing connection to it. Yep, part of me is really scared about this. So add connection. And then you could use, you don't have to use Focus Mate. Sorry, I just found it, so I'm kind of excited about it. And I've used it a few times this week. But it could be a friend. I have a friend in California that we used to do this, like, and it was always our bookkeeping. She would say, can I come over? Do you have time to like do an hour of bookkeeping? And I was like, come on over. And we would just sit down at the big dining room table together and kind of do our own thing. Okay, last couple things. Interrupt catastrophizing. We talked about this last time. Huge driver of stress. Lisa Goller talks about this. So, I'm just thinking about this thing that might happen in the future and getting all worked up about it. Interrupt it. Stand up. Do a big movement. Say something. Turn on some music. Dance. Come back to right now. Play. Have fun. Turn on some music. I'm trying to learn to juggle. Grab your scarves. Do something. Pet your animal. Have fun is bringing connection and a great manager of stress, mitigating stress. Okay.